there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up and my March TBR. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box below for links to all of my social media, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways from me. So I wanted to combine my February wrap-up and my March TBR because I have been in a reading slump. I only finished 2 books in the month of February, and it was just not a good reading month, and some of my February books that I had on my TBR are going to bleed into March, so I just didn't want it to get too redundant. I really don't know what's going on with me and just not being able to read. I feel like the books that I have been picking up just have not been gripping me, like in any shape or form, like emotionally, plot-wise, character-wise, and I'm just not excited to pick these books up. So I've been starting a bunch of different books to see which one is really gonna like grip me. So I'm in the middle of like a whole bunch of different books, but I'll go through that with you guys. But before we do that, let's talk about the 2 books that I did read in the month of February. The first one is The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is her second book in her Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which is a spin-off of her Caraval trilogy. I do have a whole review for the Caraval trilogy as well as Once Upon a Broken Heart, so I will link that up in the cards as well as in the description box. But in this book, we are following a character named Evangeline, and in book 1, she made a deal with a fate, and fates are these mischievous kind of immortal beings that want to help you, but they're only helping you to help themselves type of deal. And there's some romantic attraction between Jax and Evangeline, and we learn in the first book that Evangeline does have these magical abilities and that there is this secret type portal in this northern kingdom that Evangeline is able to open with her magic, and a lot of people are after her to try and get her to open this arch because there is rumored to be power and treasure behind this arch, and there's also rumors that there is a monster behind this arch. So there's a lot of mystery in this book, and this book is super fast-paced. It's super whimsical. Stephanie Garber is just so creative in her world building and just the way that she describes mundane things to make them whimsical. It's very fairy tale-esque, and I really had a lot of fun with this book. I got through it super quickly. I physically read it / audiobooked it from my library, and the 3rd book does come out this year, and you know that I'll be getting my hands on that one. And I ended up giving The Ballad of Never After 3 out of 5 stars. And the next book I finished was a nonfiction book, and that is The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. This is a book that I have attempted to read at least 3 different times and just never been able to get through it. For me personally, nonfiction is something that I actually have to discipline myself to read because I read for escapism, and that means fiction. So I have more fun with fiction, but at the same time, I love learning, so I like reading nonfiction too. And I finally decided I was going to finish this darn book because I've heard amazing things about it, and what I had read in the past really was interesting and good. But this follows an investigative reporter named Lee Strobel. He's very, very famous, and it takes place, I think, in the 80s. Is when his story began, and he went on this journey to investigate the evidence of Jesus Christ and the historical evidence, the historical accuracy of the Gospels and the Bible, the historical accuracy of the story of Jesus Christ, and he goes on to investigate the veracity of all of this. And in his investigative journalism, he actually comes to faith in Jesus because of everything that he learned and the abounding evidence that there is to support the claims of the Gospels. And what I really, really loved about this book is that every single person that Lee Strobel interviewed was highly, highly, highly educated. These are not Joe Schmo off the street. These are the top people in their fields about history, psychology, medicine. They have so many accolades. Every single person had a paragraph or 2 of accolades. And these are people that are experts that he was interviewing. And one thing I really liked about Lee Strobel is that he was not afraid to ask tough questions that some people might find offensive, in order to learn and to get an answer. And I really liked the structure of the book, the way that it was broken down into the different elements. There was only one part of the book I couldn't read, and this is where he interviewed I think it was a mortician, and they were talking about the physical abuse and the beating that Jesus received in his last days, and the actual horrific accounts of how people were crucified. That for me is really hard to read. I can't read about physical abuse like that, so I did skip over that section. But if you were looking to expand your knowledge about who Jesus was and just the history that surrounds him, then I highly recommend this book, and I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. So those were the 2 books that I read in February, and I am in the middle of reading a couple of books, like I said. So some of these bleed in from my February TBR, and they will become part of my March TBR. The first one is The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. I am currently 45% of the way through this. I have been mostly audiobooking this, and I will be completely honest, I'm still not completely enthralled with this story. I really do like the audiobook. The audiobook narrator is excellent, and it's really what's keeping me going because I'm finding the story personally to be very dull. Basically, it surrounds the days before, during, and after this battle around this hill between the Northmen and the Union. And it's kind of like a continuation story of his First Law. And we do get a lot of characters from First Law in this book, as well as from Best Served Cold. And it's just like, there's nothing about it I'm loving. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I'm just along for the ride. That's really it. Like I said, I am going to finish this. I just renewed my audiobook. I have it for another 3 weeks, so I will definitely have this done by the end of March. And maybe at some point I will grow to love it a little bit more and be able to give like a super positive review for you guys. Then I decided to pick up Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This is a YA fantasy, and it surrounds this traveling carnival. And I decided to pick this up because after I finished The Ballad of Never After, I really wanted to read something that had like a circus or carnival type setting. I absolutely love those settings. And I was going to read Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis, but I decided to pick this up instead because this is a standalone and I really didn't feel like starting a new series. And like I said, this also revolves around a traveling carnival. But in this book, we're following a girl named Serena, and Serena was born literally without eyes. Like, she has no eyes and like no eye sockets. It's kind of odd, like when I imagine it in my head. And she was orphaned, and she ended up being picked up by the proprietor of this traveling circus known as Gamora. And Gamora literally travels around these kingdoms putting on shows. And Serena is an illusion worker, so she can create illusions. And she ended up realizing that she could actually create illusions in the form of people that become almost like flesh and blood. And someone starts murdering her illusions, and these illusions can bleed like people. And her adopted father, the proprietor of Gamora, really doesn't seem too concerned about it because he doesn't see these illusions as people. He sees them as just like part of her imagination that manifested itself into something tangible. So it's kind of a really weird dynamic. So Serena, with the help of Luca, this boy who has another strange type of ability called Jinx Work, illusion is another type of ability called Jinx Work. So he has one where he can be killed and come back to life. So he kind of appeared out of nowhere, and he's been helping Serena with the investigation of who is murdering her illusions. So that's where I'm at. I'm on chapter 11, about page 160, so I'm almost halfway there. I love the carnival setting. I'm finding it a lot of fun. I'm not absolutely loving the book or the writing. I think this was Amanda Foody's first ever published novel, and in my personal opinion, like, it's very evident that this is her first ever published novel. There's really not a lot of depth to the characters. There's really not a lot of ways that she's made me feel any type of emotion, even though there's like, death in the book. I'm really not connected to any of the characters. So as of right now, it's just like a fun ride. I'm just enjoying reading it, but there's nothing about it that I'm absolutely loving. But it's a short book and it's really quick to read, so I would definitely be getting through this one in March. Next, we have Kiss of Steel by Beck McMaster. I decided to pick it up because I was really struggling with Best Served Cold and Daughter of the Burning City, so I thought that I just needed something fun with a little bit of romance and spice and like sexual tension, so I decided to grab this one, and I'm on page 40, and I'm actually really liking it so far. It's actually a really quick read, and I've never read anything by Beth McMaster. So in this book, we're following a world that has steampunk elements. It takes place in like an alternate London type setting, and we're following a character that is wanted by this duke, and I don't yet know why. And there is this gang lord that offers her protection in exchange for her to help him in like teach him. And that's where we're at. And there are some paranormal elements to this. It sounds like this gang lord is a vampire type character because it talks about him being able to ingest blood. They're called cold bloods. They're not called vampires. So I'm not really sure if like they act the same way as vampires. So I'm really not that far into the paranormal elements of this world. I'm really not into like the spicy part of this world yet, but there will be some tension between Blade, the gang lord, and Honoria, our main character, that has been already established and set up. So I'm really hoping this is just a fun, light read, and there's 4 books in the series. If I like this, I will definitely continue. The next book I want to get to is Pandemic by Robin Cook. This is a medical thriller, and my library does have the audio version of this available, which is good. This will be my second attempt at reading Robin Cook. If any of y'all have been watching my channel, you know that I read his book Nano in 2022, and it was one of the worst books I read of the entire year. But this one is more highly rated on Goodreads than Nano is, so I'm hoping that the story is just way more fleshed out and better written. But in this book, we're following a medical examiner named Jack, and Jack has been tasked with examining this woman, this seemingly healthy woman who collapsed dead on a subway in New York, and she seems to have these the same symptoms as the 1918 Spanish influenza. So Jack is super scared that there's going to be a repeat of the same sort of pandemic, but as he continues to dig into the death of this woman, he realizes that she has a heart transplant, but the heart contains similar DNA to her own. And this further leads him to this biotechnology company that has been playing around with gene editing. First up, I find the idea of genetic engineering and gene editing absolutely fascinating, which is why I decided to grab this book used, because it does delve into that. It's just something that we are slowly dipping our feet into, but the ramifications could be so profound in our world if we are able to perfect that type of technology. And I'm really interested to see how Robin Cook connects like the Spanish influenza to organ transplant market and biotechnology. Definitely interested. So the premise sounds really, really good. I'm just hoping that the execution is good. So stay tuned. And lastly, guys, I am going to be continue reading my teacher book, First Days of School. This is by Harriet Wang, and I don't know if I'm going to get this done in March because I am going very slowly with this. I'm highlighting, I'm taking notes. However, the good thing about it is that it's not like, there's not a lot of words on the page. So I'm going to try and show you guys. So each page doesn't really have that much content, and there's a lot of like pictures and diagrams. So to read this book is actually fairly quick. It's just not super dense text or anything like that. But like I said, I am going through it slowly because I really do want to learn and process all of the information that's in here and see if there's any things that I can implement currently in my profession to help me become a better, more effective, more engaging teacher. And just I've been jotting some ideas down for next school year that I want to include in my classroom. So I'm going through this super, super slowly. All right, y'all, that is it for my March TBR as well as my short February wrap up. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, what is on your TBR for March, or what books you read in the month of February. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye.